Welcome back to Forgotten Hollywood. For most of known history, Friday the 13th has been thought of as unlucky. Since 1980, it's been linked to images of lakes, blood, and hockey masks. However, this franchise is unique for one reason: it changes the rules with every film. Literally, it's like a game of telephone where each movie builds on the ones that came before until it's so far removed from where it started. I'm questioning whether I'm actually watching Jason Voorhees at this point. The first few films collectively are almost an inverse of Psycho, following many of the same cinematography techniques and imagery, especially when it comes to butcher knives and showers. The core of the series, or at least at the beginning, was the relationship between Jason and his devoted mother. This is handled differently from one movie to the next, ranging from a vital plot point to a casual mention. This is one of the things that makes the franchise unique: its shifting tone. In the first film, the story opens with a flashback to the first murders. The killer's perspective is used to hide their identity, a trick I've seen in other horror classics, such as Jaws. Personally, I love this technique as it adds a bit of mystery and opens up the story to a surprise reveal later. Except in the case of Jaws, where the only surprise was the massive size of the shark.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
As it turns out, the killer is human and quite insane, but humans are mortal. When the killer is defeated by the one virtuous character, which is another trope of horror movies, it seems that it's all over. However, it wouldn't be a Friday the 13th movie without a final scare towards the end as the virtuous character is attacked by the ghost of young Jason. After the success of the first film and what was arguably a cliffhanger ending, audiences wanted more. So, a year after part 1 came part 2. Here, the killer shifts from Mrs. Voorhees to her beloved son, Jason. And this is also where the plot hole starts. Now, some people might be upset at me for pointing these out, but this is what I've noticed watching these movies. The first is that the ghost of Jason in the first movie was a young boy, the age he was when he was drowned. And now Jason is a grown man, which implies he did not drown at that time. And he's seeking to avenge the death of his mother and finish what she started, except her motive was to avenge his death, and if he never died, it just becomes kind of vague. The movies seem to go with a sort of territorial thing of you go into Jason's area, you start annoying him, he will deal with it. That only lasts for a few movies because eventually you see Jason going further and further away from his little bubble. Going to town, to the city, going to space. It gets kind of ridiculous. I would like to highlight the fifth movie in the franchise, Friday the 13th: A New Beginning. This is because it's not really a Jason movie in multiple ways. The first is the fact that this is a copycat, which isn't a problem if it was done right, which it's kind of not. The real issue with this installment is that not only does it not feel like a Jason movie, it doesn't really work as a slasher movie at all. Like with other styles of horror movies, a slasher film is about atmosphere, tension, and threat. And this movie kind of missed on all levels. The characters were unlikable or forgettable, and several characters were so irritating that I was actually starting to root for the killer. I'm not supposed to root for the killer in a slasher movie. On that note, the murders were both too random and too frequent. There was no tension buildup. It was just, okay, here's some random person whose car won't start. They're going to get killed. And, oh, here's this person's brother who's visiting and they're going to get killed. Oh, and here's the annoying neighbor and they're going to get. It's really like that. Boom, 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 boom. You don't really have time to process anything. You don't really have time to um, even get scared. It's just blood to blood to blood to blood. There was also a lot of nudity for the sake of nudity and these flat attempts at humor. If you were to take the name Jason Voorhees out of the movie, it would become a generic B movie of the 80s. It I didn't even make it to the end. I was so bored. Freddy vs. Jason in 2003 and Friday the 13th the reboot in 2009. Freddy vs. Jason was a movie that fans had been wanting since the possibility was hinted at in the ninth installment 10 years prior. It was a box office success, earning back its production budget opening weekend. Was it the greatest horror movie ever? No. But if you are a fan of Friday the 13th movies or the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, you'd probably enjoy it. However, I was not impressed by the reboot. Like with the fifth installment, it just didn't feel like a Jason movie. There was all this explanation as to what he was doing and how he was doing it, which just took all the mystery out of it. And we knew everything that was happening. There wasn't any tension, and it just fell flat. One of the things I had issue with was the fact that Jason kept a girl captive for weeks, if not months. Why? It goes against his character, it goes against everything they have been. And yes, I know this was a reboot, so it wasn't quite Jason as we know him, but it was too far from Jason as he was established for it to be Jason Voorhees. It just didn't work. But at least it was better than part 5. I was able to make it all the way to the end. Doesn't actually say much. I made it to the end of Peter Pan and Wendy. In total, the Friday the 13th franchise has 12 films and the highest kill count of any of the iconic slasher movies, especially if you count the deaths not caused by Jason, which total around 30 just between the two movies where Jason is not the killer, and counting 2 people who died in a dream sequence. With low budgets, the most expensive of these movies being around 30,000, practical effects and camera tricks made the series work, keeping costs down and providing a better atmosphere. However, the killings do get more brutal as time goes on, and as for me, I'm just happy to avoid Crystal Lake in the future. Thanks for watching. What are your thoughts on the Friday the 13th franchise? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the bell for notifications, and I will catch up with you next time.